Hi, I'm Katie.
I'm Steve.
And we're from the All Electric family. We're going to talk about our recent trip to Moab because we had a question from one of our viewers, hi Eric, that was asking us, one, why we didn't take the Tesla on this trip and what the cost difference would have been if we had taken our EV. The first question was, why didn't we take the Tesla? Because I'm impatient.
So put the cart ahead of the horse, so to speak,
Yes.
and bought an Airstream that cannot be towed by the Tesla, outside of some people online saying it can, but we're not willing to try that.
We bought a 30-foot Airstream that weighs about 8,000-ish pounds fully loaded, and the Tesla can only handle about 5,000 pounds, the Model X. So right now, we just don't have an EV that can tow the camper that we have.
Yeah, we anticipated getting an electric truck last
A lot
year,
faster.
like everybody else.
Yes.
So, anyways, and that's also why you get to see our faces instead of us in a vehicle. So we got to do some theoretical stuff right now.
I'm talking to you. You get to see our beautiful faces.
So.
But then the cost, which we thought, especially right now, was a really good time to talk about what would the cost difference be if we were traveling in our EV versus taking our F350, which we had to take on this trip. So the trip was about 842 miles.
Yeah, so we spent $1,008 on diesel for our F350. And that was there and back. So 842 miles out, 842 miles back.
If we would have taken our Tesla, our Model X that has free supercharging, it would have been a free trip.
Sure.
$0. We would have paid nothing for fuel, which is huge, but we are probably the last round of people to get the free supercharging with our car. So
my assumption.
Sadly, if you don't already currently have that is not going to be what it's like for you.
So then we went and looked up the average cost of supercharging, and that's 25 cents per kilowatt hour. And so that would have equaled out to be $412 worth of supercharging.
Then we wanted to talk about versus other charging networks, so like the RVing, and just different performance on the vehicle itself. So the RVing would have been $629 for that same trip, round trip.
Yeah, so that's Electrify America, and that's having their Pass Plus at 31 cents per kilowatt hour. And some of this information that we're getting is from Kyle on Add-a-Spec when he did a 70-mile-an-hour test with a trailer. And so, this is theoretical, but that's what it would have cost if we would have got similar consumption.
But we also think that price is not the only factor that you need to consider because there is the time difference. So we wanted to talk about that as well. This is just for one trip. When we talk about the time,
we're just talking about going out.
Going out there. And then you would have the same amount of time coming back. So for us in the F350, it took us about 12 hours and if you ask Google, it's 9 minutes. So somewhere roughly in there, 12 hours, a little over 12 hours. And then you calculate your time for your fuel stops. And we said roughly about 15 minutes for each stop. Some were probably faster, some were probably slower. So we said about an hour and 15 minutes for fueling up. And that would have been in about 5 fuel stops. So your total trip time for one, heading out there would have been about 13 and a half-ish hours in the F350.
And that's just going all the way out there. That's
Yes.
not stopping or anything like that. And so, once again, theoretical, if you're willing to drive for 13 and a half hours or have a drive day of 13 and a half hours, that's what it would have taken.
Yeah. But we threw in some stops on the side of the road to eat. We would get in the camper, make some lunch, and, kind of hang out, let everybody stretch their legs. Also, we did not drive all the way through. So we drove a little ways, stopped at a campground overnight, and then continued on.
Yeah.
So factoring that in, obviously the trip is a little bit longer, but we would have done the same thing in the Tesla.
With the Tesla, the drive time, because it's a slower mile per hour, we figured that on average in the F-350, we were doing 70 miles an hour. And with the Tesla, on average, we were going to do 55 miles an hour. So that extends that drive time quite a bit. And so it goes to 15 hours and 20 minutes. So, and then with that being said, there would be 8 stops. And this is just going straight through. So there would be 8 stops, and you would have 6 hours of charging altogether. Then it would be 21 hours and 20 minutes that it would take to do that.
But we should throw in that in that overnight stop, which we would take no matter what vehicle we were doing, you could charge the Tesla at the campground. So you're taking out one of those
you would take out
charge stops. So, I mean, you are saving a little bit of time. It doesn't make up all of the time that you are gaining in driving the gas vehicle, but it is convenient to just wake up and have your car fully charged.
Yes.
And at $0.
Yeah, we're going to pay for the campground no matter what. Yep. So, and then we'll move on to the Rivian. The Rivian, the only thing that we have to go by once again is what Kyle did with his trailer. And so on average, he was traveling at 70 miles an hour. So this is based upon that. And so it would take 12 hours and 9 minutes, once again, just like it did in the F-350. But you would have longer stops because it's a bigger battery pack and you are taking a little bit longer. So we figured that it would be 8 stops once again, and it would take 8 extra hours. And so altogether, that would take 20 hours and 9 minutes. And once again, if you stopped halfway to stay the night, then you would be fully charged when you wake up in the morning. So that would remove one of those.
And we should throw a disclaimer in there because if you're unfamiliar with campgrounds, you can get some 20 amp service, you can get a 30 amp, or you can get 50 amp. So we are speaking of if you are plugged into 50 amp.
Yes.
So it's not the slower chargers.
Yeah.
You need the 50 amp if you want to get charged up overnight.
Yeah. And we'll go through another video about all that stuff so people
the adapters
can understand that, but that's not necessarily for this one.
Yeah.
Some of the caveats with that are going to be you're going to stop more than you think, especially when you have 3 kids and a dog. More than likely, the time difference that it took, the 13 hours versus the 20 hours from the F-350, the electric vehicle, is going to be a little bit closer. Is it going to totally close that gap? No, it's not. But understanding that you're going to stop for lunch, or the dog has to to the bathroom, or your wife does. And so, anyways, so that gap will close. But, until we actually get a truck that can pull our trailer, do a direct comparison of that, this is just a theoretical.
So put in a good word for us, guys.
Yeah. If you know somebody.
Tell those people we need a truck.
I've reached out to everybody I know, and obviously I don't know anybody.
Yeah, but put in a good word for us. We want a truck.
So, anyways.
I think that's all. I think that covers the questions, and like we said, we'll be back with answering more questions. And so if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. We want to answer your questions and share our experience to help you make the right decision on if you are going to start using your EV to travel, or if you're just going to stick with gas, and to let us know.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.